Yeah.
I do, yes.
Doing well. How are you doing? Good.
That's a lot easier, Nicole.
What is? It is.
And your instructions were perfect.
Good. Yeah, I love it. You don't have to remember your password every time.
For what?
You're intended to go.
Put in?
Oh, yeah, I emailed instructions. Oh, yeah, it's super nice.
I like the fact that it just brought everything up. I didn't have to go search by date. That was my happy time.
Good afternoon. Guess it's time to call our meeting to order. So looks like we have a quorum of 6. I don't know if Councilmember Fitissimano and there he is. And Councilman Tom Hune maybe will join us shortly. But we do have a quorum. We'll call our meeting to order to begin our meeting. We'll begin with our approval of the minutes of June 8th.
I'll move for approval of those minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Then without objection, the minutes will be approved, and hearing no objection, the minutes are approved unanimously. Reviewing our agenda for later tonight, you got some additional information on some items we had asked last week. Other than that, there have been no changes. Any questions or concerns for our agenda later tonight? Okay, not hearing any. We'll go to our discussion of our first public hearing for next week, or excuse me, in 2 weeks. Next week is a 5th Tuesday. And so for whoever may be listening in, please be aware that we will not be meeting next week. We will meet in 2 weeks. So for that particular meeting, let's see, we're going to talk about application GPZ-8-2021. In conjunction with that will be ordinance 21-39, ordinance 21-40, and resolution 21-109. This is for changes requested for property located at 7147 West Parkway Boulevard. Looks like Mr. Pastorick is ready to review that with us. So Mr. Pastorick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll share my screen to go over this. So the first item is a general plan zone change. You can see the property here is on the southeast corner of Parkway Boulevard and 7200 West. The property is 6.7 acres, currently zoned A, and the requested zone is the RM zone. The general plan is for community use, and the proposed general plan is medium density residential. And the reason for the community use is the property is currently owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and was originally slated for a chapel, but the church is now looking to sell the property. And so that just explains the reason why the general plan had a community use designation. If you look at just property immediately around it, you have the Sugar Plum subdivision to the south and east, and then larger agricultural properties in the north side of Parkway. Then, of course, on the west side of 7200 West is in Magna. Here's just a close-up. Of course, the property is vacant. You can see there's homes directly across the street to the south, and then also the essentially backyards to the east on this property. Next few images are basically pictures of the area. So this is looking from the northwest corner of the property east along Parkway Boulevard. This shot is taken from the southwest corner of the property looking east along Antelope Road. This is taken from the southeast corner looking north along the eastern boundary. So you can see the existing homes there. This shot is from the southwest corner looking north. So this would be 7200 West, you can see. The next image here is looking south from the northwest corner along 7200 West. So you can see the improvements already in there on 7200. This image from Google, this is actually from the southwest corner looking to the south. So you can see there is an existing trail that kind of meanders along 7200 West along the west side of the Sugar Plum development. This image looking to the southwest towards the Oakers across the site. And this one from looking west along Parkway from the northeast corner. And last image here, I believe this is looking to the west along Antelope Drive. So this is the south end of the property where you can see the homes that are just on the other side of the street. This is the concept plan that the developer submitted. So this shows a total of 43 units. So similar to other projects the council's recently reviewed, this would be a senior condo development, so age restricted. The density here is 6.4 units to the acre. Very similar in concept in that there's 4 units in a building, or there are a few buildings with 2 and one just a single unit, but all essentially the same unit design. What's a little bit unique about this particular product is that the unit's a little more long and deep, or narrow in width, but then deeper in depth. And so because of that, you have very deep driveways. So these particular driveways are about 40 feet deep, just given the configuration of the units, where typically you'd see driveways that are more like 20 feet deep. In this particular concept, they're showing the connection between Parkway Boulevard in the north and Antelope Road on the south, so you could essentially drive through. This was ultimately the concept the Planning Commission preferred. The next image just shows dropping the connection to Antelope Road. So there was some discussion about traffic from neighbors. And so the developer had offered up this as an alternative where perhaps there's not a connection out to Antelope Road. This is just a colored version of the same concept plan. This shows the just the floor plan. So you have units that would just, again, be all one level. You see the size there. And then there's also, similar to other product, there would be the option of having a bonus room that would be above the garage and part of the unit. So these, that would be essentially a second level above the garage and in master bedroom area. And finally, we have some renderings here. So this, looking at different perspectives of the front of the unit. Again, a few more, just looking a little bit more at the sides. And that's the last of the renderings. So in the development agreement, it includes the renderings, but also addresses a few other items that I think are worth noting. So when I pull that up, so one of the things that's included is that there would be a precast wall along Parkway Boulevard as well as along 7200 West, and that there would be 5 feet of landscaping between the sidewalk and the wall, just to provide a little bit of a buffer there. There's also a requirement that there would be the existing sidewalk along 7200 West would be widened to 8 feet so that the trail that's along the Sugar Plum development could continue north up to Parkway Boulevard. There's also some language about additional fencing on the east and south sides. East side being a 6 foot tall vinyl fence, whereas along the south side, where you have homes across the street, would be more of a 2-rail vinyl fence. That's where you don't have a solid fence where you have homes right across the street. There are more items in the development agreement, of course, but that hits on some of the items that are unique in this particular project. And that summarizes this application.
Steve,
Yes.
what is the adjacent zoning?
So the adjoining zoning to the east and south, as well as the north, is agricultural zoning. Now, with the Sugar Plum development, it's a little unique in that it was done as a PUD, so you don't have half-acre lots. Their lots are more in the 12,000 plus range because it's a PUD and there's a lot of open area in Sugar Plum. But that is the existing zoning, would be the agricultural zone on all sides that are in West Valley.
Do you know what it is in Magna across the street?
I don't, but that's certainly something I can look into. Just looking at the aerial image, if you look in that area to the west, you can see that there's some townhomes and some smaller lots, single family. So things appear to be a little more dense on the west side of 72 and Magna than they do here in our city.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or council?
Just, were there any requests for, I don't think variance is the right word, but anything that deviates from the normal code or process for this particular proposal?
No, they're looking at just following the standards. And one thing I didn't mention is that at the planning commission meeting, you'll notice this in the meeting minutes, there were a number of residents that spoke in opposition to this that lived in the neighboring subdivision.
Yes, I've heard from several as well that they would prefer to have single family homes there.
Right.
And what is the minimum house size?
So they're proposing 1,520 square feet would be the minimum, which is similar to what we saw in some of the more recent projects that are similar to this, the other senior condo developments.
And then if they add the room above the garage, that seems to just kind of be a third bedroom, like a small option. So it's the same with the 2-story.
So I'm just pulling up the floor plan for that. So it looks like on the unit that has the bonus room, they're showing that one being 2,400 square feet. And it would be, they show the option of a third and fourth bedroom. The developer did point out that so on the main level where you have the master bedroom and then the second bedroom, what's labeled as a second bedroom is often used as more as an office or a flex space. So people may choose to have it just be essentially a 1-bedroom unit with just more space for office. So it could be seen as potentially the space that has the bonus room as being 3 or 4 bedrooms.
Okay, thank you. Do we know what the split is? What's going to be the 2 different floor plans?
So they have not indicated what the mix would be. What the developers indicated is it would be the option of a buyer to choose whether they wanted to have a bonus room or not. I know on the last development that the council approved, we ended up having a standard in the development agreement for, I believe, 25% of the units to have a bonus room. In this case, there was, while it's offered as an option, there wasn't a commitment by the developer on a certain percentage.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments of Mr. Pastrick? Hearing none, I will move to the next item on our agenda. This will be application ZT-2-2021 filed by our city. A zone text change to add regulations for internal accessory dwelling units. We'll consider ordinance 21-41 in conjunction with that. Mr. Pastrick, are you taking this as well?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So this ordinance proposal is in response to a bill passed by the Utah legislature earlier this year. It was House Bill 82. In that bill, the legislature essentially made what they refer to as internal accessory dwelling units as a permitted use in zones that allow for single-family homes. And they also, in the bill, limited the types of regulations that cities can have on internal accessory dwelling units. And so while there are things cities can regulate, it's basically defined in this bill the things that cities can regulate. And so in response to the bill, what this ordinance does is, as directed, allow for internal accessory dwelling units. So they have to actually be inside the house. They can't be like in a detached structure or above a detached garage, for example. It has to be in the house. But in allowing that, it also imposes all of the regulations that are allowed by state code. And so just looking at the ordinance, I can just briefly touch on those items that are allowed to be regulated. And it's it's really much longer than it actually is. The reason for the length of the ordinance is we added a definition, so that ends up making the ordinance very lengthy because of how long that section is. But if you go to the second to last page of the ordinance, or excuse me, third to last page, it gets into the regulations. And so the first being is that you can only have one. You can't have more than one in a home. The second is you can't have a separate utility meter for an accessory dwelling unit. The third is that it has to be designed in a way so that you can't tell from the outside that there is a second unit. So for an example, that would be adding another door on the front of the house so it looks like a duplex. The fourth is that they have to have at least one additional parking space beyond what's already required in the code. The fifth is that they would, if they're displacing existing parking, so let's say they convert a garage space into an accessory dwelling unit, they would have to replace that garage parking elsewhere on the property. So they can't just take it out and not replace the parking. The sixth is that these would not be allowed in a mobile home. So it actually has to be a site-built single family home. The next is that they would need if it's going to be rented, so there can be scenarios where people would build one and not actually rent it. But if they're going to rent it, they would need a business license. The owner would need a business license, and it can't be a short-term rental. So that's something that the legislature did allow is to prohibit accessory dwelling units as being used as a short-term rental. Two more items. One is that, one of the last couple is that the homeowner has to live on the site. So it can't be that someone buys a home and adds an ADU and then rents both the upstairs and the downstairs, for example, if it's a basement unit. The owner is required to live there. And then finally, there were some provisions about being able to limit areas where they could be within the city. So the first was that any lot that's less than 6,000 square feet, they can be precluded on lots less than 6,000 square feet. So we've done that. But then the other one says that, and I'll try my best to summarize here, is if you look at all the areas in the city that are zoned primarily for residential, and in our case, that's about 10,000 acres, 25% of those can be precluded from having internal accessory dwelling units. And so how we decided what that area should be was driven by two things. So the stated purpose of the bill was to provide for more affordable housing. That was the intent, or the stated intent of the bill. Well, since the east side of the city tends to have more affordable housing than the west side, we tend to have more apartments and also some older housing and generally smaller housing on the east side of the city. That what the ordinance states is that anything east, any home east of 40th West would not be allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit or an internal accessory dwelling unit. So it's not only because of that's where more of the affordable housing is, but also generally speaking, the smaller and older homes are east of 40th. Now that doesn't always hold true, but generally speaking, that's where you would see homes that are older and in general smaller. So you have less opportunity for that. So that summarizes what's in the ordinance. And again, the intent here was to follow state code and regulate to the fullest extent that the state code allows us to do.
Council?
I have a couple questions. So when you have a rental unit, you can classify it as commercial and then it changes the property tax, so it doesn't have a discount for the. Would we be able to do this as well? Because
So sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing the question, but if I understood right, it's If someone has a rental unit, would that affect the property tax on the property?
Right. If you are renting out a house and you have a business license, then you lose that discount for it being your primary residence. It's now a commercial and it's taxed different.
So because, and this is something I can look into further with the county, but because the homeowner is still required to live there, I believe it would still be taxed as a primary residence. And so if something is someone's primary residence, they're taxed at 55% of the value as opposed to the full value. And
Right.
so while having the accessory dwelling unit may actually increase the value of the home, my understanding is that they would still get the reduction because it's still their primary residence.
So as a city, do we tax those rental homes differently?
I was actually just talking to Jim, and our understanding is pretty close to Steve's, although we'd have to go back to clarify and make sure. But also remember that no, we wouldn't be taxing differently. Designation made by the county and between them and the owner from an operation standpoint. But we think Steve's right. You still get the exemption of the.
Okay, but are we doing that? Are we taking away that exemption on our regular rentals that the resident is not living
Oh, that the resident's not living
in?
in.
Yeah, that they're just renting the house. Are we taxing that one at a higher rate?
Again, we don't make that determination, so we wouldn't have any say over it or not. It's the owner themselves and the county that would be making that determination.
Yeah, the difference is bigger than the county tax at the higher rate instead of giving them the discount.
Yeah, I'd have to see some examples. To understand it. I know
Okay,
there are a lot that, but ones that I'm familiar with don't do.
okay.
Okay, council, just for your information, for some reason there where Councilwoman Lang is, it's not picking up the sound very well. I was able to hear Don, although it was a little low, I heard him. But even that exchange between Mr. Pyle and Councilwoman Lang didn't come through as clear. So there's some problem right there with the sound.
New microphones. Mayor, I have some questions to Mr. Patrick, please. Steve, as I understand it, I mean, we're doing this because the legislature is making us do it, and their purpose was to create more units, basically more affordable housing units. But does this now give us teeth that anything where they haven't applied for a license, they're renting out their basement, they're renting a room in their house, they're east of 40th West, does this give us some teeth to shut those down now? Airbnb, but they're living there, but they're renting out, less than 30 days at a time.
So one way that it would give us teeth is the short-term rental aspect. So right now, our ordinance doesn't get into whether someone's renting a unit as short-term or not. But as far as someone that's currently has, let's say, an accessory dwelling unit that's not permitted, in my view, I don't see how this bill would give us any more teeth than what we already have.
Because we haven't permitted them before. We just haven't gone out and enforced it.
So-
Unless they change the structure so it's not fire safe, and if I remember right.
So we have, where possible, we do, where we learn about these, and that's part of the challenge when people will do these without getting approvals. They don't get a permit and they'll be in a basement, so it's hard to know without actually being inside. And so if we can get inside and see that there's been work done without a permit and they're using it as a second unit, we do enforce in those situations. But that's really the challenge, is knowing that it's actually happening and being able to get inside and see that's how it's being used.
So it's an enforcement question more than a legality question.
And one of the things the bill does as well, in some ways makes it easier, is that the building code requirements were also changed. So for example, prior to this bill, if you're going to have, say, a basement apartment, there were certain fire separation requirements that were in play. And you had to have separate, air conditioning units, things like that. And those requirements have been softened to make it easier to have one of these. And again, that was done in the bill.
Right, but they have to be west of 40th West.
Correct.
So that's, east of 40th West is
They're
not
prohibited.
permitted.
Yeah, east of 40th would be prohibited, west would be allowed.
Where before we didn't have that line drawn. And also anybody that's using their basement as an Airbnb in the whole city, unless they're renting for more than 30 consecutive days, those are now all illegal based upon what the legislature's done, trying to create more housing.
I think they're trying to affect the long-term housing, not the Airbnb rentals.
Right, but interesting, I think there are some interesting, perhaps unintended consequences for the legislature, but a lot of people complain to me, hey, across the street, they're renting out a 4-bedroom house and they're renting it 4 bedrooms. They haven't made the changes inside to make it unsafe. I don't know, I just think it just stirs the pot and keeps the waters muddy as far as what people are going to do, because most people aren't paying attention to if there are any laws on it anyway.
Can people rent out a room right now without even east of 40th West?
So,
Legally,
yes. So if,
They can't build a separate apartment.
right. So as an example, someone could have a roommate, let's say they own a home and they rent a room, but based on our code right now, it only allows one lease. So whether someone is renting, an investor is renting out the whole house or a homeowner is renting out a room, our code right now allows one lease.
This is the same, that it just allows one.
That exactly, because the home has to be occupied by the owner. So if they're going to have a separate unit, then it's just that one unit.
so without reading the entire building code, I don't know if you can hear me, but can you have a split level where you walk in the front door and you can either go upstairs or downstairs? Can they put a door at the top of the stairs and a door at the bottom of the stairs and make that 2 separate units and rent out the basement?
So my understanding would be yes. I don't know all the building code requirements, but my understanding is a setup like that would be possible.
Because in the past, that's been illegal, so they've softened it. So now that's allowed. Okay.
Steve, would that almost be like turning that into a duplex? That's permissible. There are no percentage requirements.
There are not. In fact, that type of regulation would be prohibited under the bill. So we can only now regulate when it comes to the ADU. We can only regulate what the bill allows us to regulate. And so when it comes
Right.
to, for example, saying the ADU can only take up, say, 40% of the house, we're not allowed to do that.
Thank you. Anything else, council? Hearing no further comments, then
I
we'll.
do have one question. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead. No problem. Go
I
ahead.
should know how to use the mute button at this point, but when there are, and I know this has been brought up before, but just to jog my memory, when there are these type of changes made or lines drawn, et cetera, what's the noticing requirement for residents, or how do we ensure that that information is out there about the change?
Sure. So when it comes to an ordinance change that applies, just broadly, there's not a notice sent out to individual homeowners. Like with a zone change, for example, we send out notices to people that own property within 300 feet. So in this case, there are requirements in state law about putting it on, for example, the Utah Public Notice website, and we put it on our website on the agenda. So we follow those rules as far as posting for an ordinance is concerned, but there's not, again, requirements for one more broad notice to the general public or individual households.
Thank you.
I think I would add one comment just for the record, and that is accessory dwelling units, for the most part, are not inexpensive. And in order for someone to create that space and recover it, the cost through rent would take years to do. And the initial upfront cost could be fairly steep. Putting in a kitchen, unless those are already there, the number of accessory dwelling units that would be created based on these changes will not be a high number. In fact, it'll be a fairly low number. So it won't impact very much of our city, even with that 40th West dividing line.
If I could add to that, Mayor, I agree. There are a number of cities that had already allowed accessory dwelling units by their own ordinances. And for those that did, they weren't seeing large numbers of permits. It was pretty much the number of permits they were seeing.
Okay. We'll try again. Any more comments or questions? Hearing none, let's go to our next public hearing, ZT-4-2021, filed by the city. Standards for single unit dwellings and 2-unit dwellings. And we will consider the next meeting ordinance 21-42 in conjunction with it. Mr. Pastor.
Great, third time's the charm here. So this next item is similar to the last, and it is in response to another bill that was passed by the legislature in the first special session. So this was House Bill 1003. And in that bill, the legislature basically prohibited cities from having what they termed building design elements for a 1 or 2 family dwelling, or in other words, a home or a duplex or twin home. And so what this ordinance does is go through our code and strike out any building design element that would conflict with what is in this bill. Now, there are some items where as we read in detail the bill, we felt that there are certain design elements that weren't specifically called out. And so we kept those in, but we went through painstakingly looking for what was described in the bill and what's in our ordinance, and kept what we felt like we could keep. But then those areas that were clearly in conflict with the bill, we struck. And so, again, that's fairly straightforward what's being proposed here. It does require a number of changes. Just as an example, the council may recall we had an ordinance not long ago for the Chesterfield overlay zone that had a number of design related elements that are no longer allowed. And so that waters down, if you will, that overlay zone by quite a bit. But it also impacts our just our single family design standards. Now, with that said, as we've mentioned before, if you look at the property that's remaining in the city, the vast majority is either entitled with the development agreement already that has design standards, or would require a change in zoning where there's the option of a development agreement, or we would get a development agreement. And the bill does still allow cities to have, these types of regulations through a development agreement. So really, in our sense, since we're have the majority of the city built out, and the land that's remaining either has a development agreement or will have a development agreement, provides substantial coverage for the city so that we can still have building design elements.
So we,
And that summarizes this item.
somebody wants to build a home now, they could have it be 100% vinyl siding.
So that is one of the provisions, is that it doesn't, our cities can't regulate what's called the exterior cladding. So basically exterior materials.
So it could be felt or whatever the building code would allow. But yeah, this pretty much guts everything we've been trying to do, except then if they're applying for a rezone, we can require it, right?
That's right.
So is this retroactive? And we have a lot of properties where they've already been zoned, I guess. I mean, if it's an old R18, or they could just go ahead and reduce their standards now and build, am I understanding that right? But if they've got a development agreement, they still have to abide by it?
Right. So they still, there's a development agreement, they still have to abide by it. And then the properties that are say zoned agricultural, and someone wants to come in and rezone those, then we can have a development agreement that would have the building design elements. And the council may recall, within the last few weeks, we brought some ordinance changes to the council to change zoning so that we could get development agreements. And we looked at some of the properties that were over an acre and but still fairly small, and there were very few. And really what would be left is, we do have a handful of properties where you may have, it's less than an acre, it's got a home on it, and someone might be able to split it in half and build another home. But those are kind of more the exception. But there really aren't any large areas that are that either don't have a development agreement or that would not need a rezone.
Well, the property that was brought to us, 5A, 7 acres on 7200 and Parkway, zoned agricultural. If they just decided, okay, we didn't get what we wanted, so we're just going to build half-acre lot homes, and they can just build little tiny, fully siding clad homes, flat roofs, whatever they want to now, right? Whatever the cheapest home is. We have no influence anymore over what they build.
If they kept the existing agricultural zoning, then yes, our regulations would be limited. We were able to keep a few, but most of them would not apply in that situation.
I haven't counted. There are plenty of empty parcels that just don't have a home on them yet, and if they don't change the zoning, then they do what they want. So my last question is, the legislature, who elected these guys? For all at fault here.
Anything else? Hearing none, then we'll move on to our consent agenda, resolution 21-110, 21-111, ratifying a couple of the city manager's appointments. Any questions on those? Hearing none, we'll go to communications for our fraud risk assessment. And Mr. Pyle, are we going to have a presentation on this, or is this more informational?
Sir, I would like Mr. Welch to just speak to the why and a couple of tips and
Okay.
advice, some areas for training or availability, that sort of thing. Okay.
Thank you for the intro, Mr. Pyle. This is our annual presentation to the City Council of the Fraud Risk Assessment. And you'll remember this is actually the second year that you've seen this. The state auditor has prepared a fraud risk assessment for all governing entities to help them be educated on the possibility of internal fraud and to be educated on the items that would help them to mitigate that fraud going forward. So what we've done is we've taken this fraud assessment that they put together. There's actually 12 general categories and then 13 basic areas of separation of duties. We have the internal score up on the screen right now. And it has 3 requirements. One of those is that we present this to you on an annual basis. The second one is that the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Pyle, and the Chief Finance Officer, myself, certify the results and that we send these into the state auditor within 6 months of our the close of our fiscal year, which is coming up. So this fulfills that requirement. This is not a required performance for the state auditor. However, it's highly recommended as a best practice. And I believe it gives us the opportunity to look at our operations and also provide opportunities for training for the staff and for the governing board on risk detection. So that's what we've done with this score. We can go down through the questions individually. I'd like to just point out a couple of things if I could. We score really quite well when we do a self-assessment. The number of points are 395 that's available. We figure that the controls that we have in place are about 375 points that we can award ourselves for that. We've been very proactive in our anti-fraud protection. You'll remember over the years, we've implemented a number of things. For example, the risk committee, the audit committee that the auditors work directly with. We've also implemented a hotline where city employees can anonymously contact the administration and let them know that there's something going on, and we have committed to look into that. We also have an annual commitment in our mandatory training to commit to ethical behavior, and that's something that's included each year, and they certify that. So if you have questions about any of these things, the one area that we missed had to do with training of the governing body. That would be yourselves. And it's something that if you would like to, we will certainly provide you the information from the state auditor's office where you can go on, and they request that once every 4 years, the governing body do their training with the auditor's office. And then there's a certificate that you print off, and we would collect that, and either Ms. Kamak would record that and keep that in her records of compliance and training. And that's the only other thing that we would put on there. This isn't to say that by implementing this, all these options, it's going to eliminate risk, but it makes us a lot stronger in our controls and gives us some kind of confidence, at least we're going in the right direction. So you'll recall that when our external auditors come in and present their audit findings, they say we have not tested everything, but we have a reasonable expectation that that there has not been anything major that's occurred in the city. And we try and do the same thing internally, is make sure that we're complying with all the state codes and we're doing those things that would mitigate any type of internal fraud.
Council? Hearing no questions. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to work on this with the city.
Okay. With that, our next communication item is Council Chambers Technology. So Eric is making us dizzy who are watching his
Sorry
camera.
about that. That's for a little later here. Okay. And as you can tell by tonight, there are still some bugs to work out, but we wanted to give you a tour of what we have accomplished in terms of the installation of the technology, the cameras, the audio, the video, and just kind of walk you through both how it works and how the public is going to see it. So I'm going to give a short introduction. Ken is going to walk you through some of the more technical aspects, and then and Sam will close it out with kind of showing you what the public sees from both YouTube and Channel 17. So as you recall, before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were all quite innocent, and we thought that if we just were able to stream the sitting city council out via our website, that everything would be great. And we had this sort of afterthought of, well, maybe someone will want to do an electronic meeting every once in a while, and we'll think about that later. And so we designed this system with these really nice cameras that we're going to have this three-way split of the podium, the audio, or the dais, the podium, and then the screen, and it was all going to go out via this website on our website, and it was all going to be great. And then everything else happened, and we had to hurry and scramble and change everything to work on video conferencing like Zoom or Teams or anything like that. Now, as you've seen over the course of the past year, we have been able to do that, but it still has a few kinks. Like these microphones in front of you, they don't amplify your voice at all. So if you talk loud, the mayor and the audience can hear you loud. If you don't talk loud, they can't hear you. And so that's one thing we're working on. But the overall, we are very, very happy with the integration of the technology that we've got, and how it's working and how it's recording. We're actually able to save a little bit of money for the city, because Zoom, which we already had to purchase and use for the last year, and YouTube are both recording our meetings as part of the package that we already bought. So we record those, and then we're able to turn them into minutes and retain them as if there are records. And so there are just things like that we didn't think about that are going really well. So that all being said, we just kind of wanted to walk you through a little bit of what we've got going on. And for the mayor and the audience at home, I'm just going to turn my camera on, and then Ken's going to go ahead and show you the different inputs and ways that we can manipulate this technology and things that we can use. So I'm going to let Ken take it away, and I'm going to turn my camera on and ask Ms. Kamack to focus on Ken for a minute while we walk through here. Go ahead, Ken.
Can you hear me okay? All right, so we'll take on a little bit of a tour here so you can kind of see everything. Everything that's basically all of your operating equipment for this is sitting in the back closet here, and we can show you that rack if you like, and we can walk you around in the other room as well. But so you can see, come around the corner there, all of the equipment is sitting right there. And there's pieces of that equipment that are used not only for these two rooms, but also for our EOC and for the administration conference room. And so this system has been very expandable. Some of the great things about that is we can take, say, a PC from this room, have a call center in here and an emergency, and we could take this screen and show it on one of the screens in the EOC and be able to utilize that. So now everything is tied into one system like that. Now, one thing we're kind of learning along the way is different audio systems. You could tell today. Down in the EOC, there's 3 mic arrays in there where if you stand against the back wall and whisper, people hear it. So there's definitely things that we can do to make this room operate the way we need it to, and we'll get it there. The great thing about this particular system is all of these video inputs and outputs are all running on a computer network, which makes it very expandable and very easy to add new devices to it. As long as we have network cabling, we can just run to that network switch. Then we don't have to worry about, say, the distance of say an HDMI cable or ways that things would extend. So. Yes, it is. Can those of you that are on Zoom, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
You're not as loud as normal, but you're very clear.
Maybe I'll just come up.
Oh, whatever you're doing seems to be making a difference.
Speaking right into the mic. But this panel right here is how we control everything. There's one on the wall, and this one actually is usually sitting up in the chambers, but it's mobile, so we can bring it in here too, and we can switch it to control either room. And so we have different inputs and outputs where we just drag the inputs to the outputs, and that's what shows up on the screens. Makes it pretty simple. We can control the cameras from here. And so in Zoom right now, we're showing the front camera. If we can switch to the rear camera, then we'll show the podium. And then we can switch out. We've got different presets on the cameras where we can set them to different zoom levels or point to different things. So that's just kind of how everything is controlled. We can even bring in phone calls into the system. If somebody was trying to do a Zoom call and that failed and we had phone call information, we could actually dial them into the system that way. And we can adjust some of the different mic volumes here, but I've been playing with that for this meeting and it hasn't helped much. So, but we'll get that resolved. We can record all of these meetings on a DVR that's part of this system. Currently, we haven't really been doing that because we already have redundant recording with both Zoom and with YouTube. So, but there's plenty of space to be able to record these meetings right on a DVR right in that same rack. Yeah, should we go ahead and go into this other room?
If you want to come physically to the other room, you're welcome, or I'll follow him with the phone.
That's what's great about the virtual world.
Whatever you want to do. Close your eyes if you get motion sick for a moment. Right.
We can't hear him.
See if we can hear another.
His iPhone. or
Oh,
iPad
it's-
slip.
That's scary.
So we tell him we can't hear a thing in here.
Are we supposed to be able to hear anything while your lips are moving?
Yeah, we losing you, buddy.
Not only they lost you, but we lost you.
No, speakers in there, we'll just speak again. I don't think that thing is on.
I heard it.
I heard.
Put the mic in front of your face. Put the mic up in face.
Okay, so maybe showing.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Jake. Yes.
Can everybody in Zoom hear me?
In you,
Yes.
yes, in Zoom.
Okay.
I don't know.
There. Can you hear me still?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I can hear.
Now.
This one's still working for in that room, so yeah, that's working. Somehow my lapel mic switched to the chambers instead of the multi-purpose room, but we've also got an input here on this panel, and then we've got the clerk machine up here where we actually usually control most things for the regular meeting. So, but I'm not sure there's anything else I really need to cover on that. Oh, yeah. As Eric showed, one of the output screens we have is here by our control center, so we can drag any of the inputs to that screen, including cable. And so we usually turn it to channel 17 to make sure that that's working. And then we've got another screen back at the end of the conference room here that we can put any source on as well. So, and then all of the screens up on the dais, all share a single output, and we can drag anything to those, all independently from what we show up on the big projection screens for the public. So that is
And now we'll turn it over to Sam to just tell you how the output to the public and the public interacts with this system.
So with with Zoom, and what we've done is on Facebook and on our social media, we let people know that if they want to comment online, we give them a link that they can fill in the information to reach out to Nicole Kmack, who will schedule them online. Now, if you're in person, you don't need to do that, but that's been an easy way for people to be able to log into Zoom and be able to do our messaging and be able to get called by Nicole during the meeting. In terms of quality, so one of the challenges, as you all know, is channel 17. It was a great picture back in 1980. Now it still has not been upgraded, so it's still very blurry. One of the benefits I think that we've come through all of this is if you're at home a year and a half ago, the only way that you could watch council meetings was through channel 17. Now we're able to do it through YouTube. So people now can log in, or not even log in, but go to YouTube and watch it live, which is a very clear HD picture that they can watch, or they can still watch channel 17, which is still blurry. We're able to record it and it goes right onto YouTube. So you can go and watch high definition. You can see council in all of its glory in HD. Or you can watch it on channel 17 if you want that blurry picture. We don't know if channel 17 is ever going to be changed over to HD. So this has actually been a real nice bonus, I think, for us as a city, that people can watch it live and get a clear definition. And what you're watching right now is the YouTube feed. So it is clear and it is that HD quality. So I think that's been a real benefit, and it kind of takes away some of the challenges. And Councilmember Christensen has over the years let me know when channel 17 has struggled, and that's been frequent. It hasn't struggled lately, but we now have a real good option in place of it.
I think it hasn't struggled lately because my wife hasn't been watching it on channel 17.
I'm not going to comment on that. You're probably right, but the YouTube has been a great feature.
The other
that we're
major
using.
complaint she had was that she couldn't hear it unless she turned it up to a level of about 72 to 75. And then when we change channels, we have to leave the room for a second because we're blown out of it.
Yeah. So I think Councilmember Christensen is showing all the reasons why it's good that we've kind of shifted away from channel 17, which will always have those challenges. But I think this has been a great service for the residents to be able to have a high quality feed of council meetings and study sessions. So thank you.
I think I would add a comment here. Although there are a few items that need to be adjusted, there's no question that we have a greatly improved system and our staff has done an amazing job of getting it all working. And although there are a few little glitches here and there in certain spots, this technology is such that those can be dealt with. So money well spent, in my opinion. Council? Okay. Hearing no other comments, then we go to our council calendar. Not hearing any comments, why we'll go to potential future agenda items.
So I have two.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
fairly, but go ahead anyway.
The first one is, does, on our CERT program through the fire department, can we study setting up a committee for that and maybe giving some funds so that they can do their advertising or whatever else they need? I know residents pay to take the course right now. That's,
Sure. I mean, yeah, we've examined that in the past. Could
Have
do
we?
it in a different way, yeah, multiple times.
okay.
We certainly have the information right now, which could tell you this is what it would cost or not.
Okay.
What's originating the request?
A citizen, a resident, just that's involved with CERT, was saying they have to raise 5,000 to 10,000 a year, and if the city could just do that as a committee instead of the citizens having to pay as much to make that happen, as far as the people taking the courses, and maybe have a resident price and a non-resident price, but help them out so they're not charging as much, and maybe we have more people get certified. And
So the question really is just, is there a way for us to fund it?
yes. And so I thought a committee like Clean and Beautiful or Arts or something was an answer, or we can just help fund it. So that was one. And then the second one, we have a skunk problem just south of the golf course, Stonebridge. And so I know we've spoken in the past about having the outside services come. I guess they gave us a proposal of about 29,000, almost $30,000 to be part of that county program where they give you the traps, remove the animals. So we have a big problem. Some of the one neighborhood has already spent over $800 buying the trap and having the people come remove them at $100 a pop. So I didn't know if there's an appetite to join that program and have the state, have them contact the state and have them help do it with through the county animal services and the USDA.
It's would be again, just a question for the whole council. just
If we
like
think
last
it's economical to do. Yeah.
And or, I mean, there are other considerations that we need to do. How is it actually accomplished? What did I get? Part of my memory is last time we looked at that, just because we gave them a fixed amount, didn't mean they were gonna come out unlimited time. So there's a limit to the service, and how do they treat a skunk different than a raccoon than a
Well, I was gonna say, the only two animals they take care of through this is raccoons and skunks. And the residents that are having the problem are blaming the 3 residents that have the chickens in their yards. And so that's I think we spoke about that being a consequence to the chicken ordinance. And the one lady just said she brings her chickens in at night into her house to keep them safe from the skunks. But it doesn't help the people that have skunks charging them on their back patio, spraying their dogs, everything else. So they've caught 8 in the last 10 days. So just another thing to maybe bring up and discuss later. That's it for me.
federal funding for something? Still active? How active are we? How active do we want it?
Steve, we
Okay.
can't hardly hear you.
Yeah, Steve Bueller, for some reason, we heard before, kind of quiet, but in that, almost not at all.
My voice is changing.
What was different?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Very small, very little.
I can't hear them. Thanks, Phil. So what was I saying? Oh, we need some data on CERT. How many people have been taking, how the program's been going over the years, because we used to have a lot more of that going on, at least anecdotally for me, than we have lately. And so, you know, as we make decisions, how much of it we want to do, I think we want to look at how much has been done, what the history has been.
Yeah, data is easy to provide. I'm sure we can give, I think mine was actually working. I think it's a timber issue between you and I.
Not very well.
Everything else is off. Okay. All right. I was going to make a Las Vegas singer joke there, but I think I'll not. Yes. So data, we can do that actually pretty easy. Get you a history update. No problem there.
Mr. Pyle, it might be beneficial as you look at that. What would it take, you know, when they start talking thousands of dollars, what's the return? You know, if we can double the numbers with $500, does that make sense? It might not make sense if we double the numbers and it takes $5,000. So if we could figure out what additional funds would do, that would be helpful. If you can.
Okay. Yep. For sure. I also actually have another item as well, since I have the mic. So Mr. Willardson is with us live and in person tonight, and this will be his last meeting before he retires. So I just wanted to recognize him and thank him for his multiple decades of service. And do you want to say anything, Russ? Okay, all right. But we're going to miss Russ. He's done a great job of not only running the department, but also preparing his successor to fill his shoes, although I'm sure he'll do it in a different way. And just wanted to make sure we noted that before Russ rides off into the sunset. And then Nicole, Ms. Kamack also has an item.
We just have a request from the Youth City Council. They would like to do a proclamation for Trails Day. So basically, they just want to do a proclamation that recognizes the use and the city's trail systems and their importance. And they wanted to do this sometime in July. We just wanted to make sure the council was comfortable with that.
So Nicole, I think I heard most of that. They wanted to, for the trail system that the youth council's been working on.
They just want to encourage residents to learn about and use the city's trail systems. So they
Okay.
want to do a proclamation to that effect in July.
Okay.
Great.
And Sam will help guide them on how to write the resolution, etc.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that.
Yep, I saw it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can we add a map to it so that it gets the information out or highlight something on our website that same day? So if anybody does listen and want to go look at it. I don't know what we have on the website already as far as our trail system. Yeah, I think if it would coincide, it'd be nice.
Yeah, I agree. Good suggestion. Anything else?
I've got a couple, Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, busy weekend in terms of emails and phone calls on my end, and I would categorize them mainly into two buckets or topics. Fireworks have been a hot one, and so I have at least 6 emails in that regard. One being against any citywide regulation or any stricter regulations about fireworks, and the rest being pretty clear asks for a citywide ban on fireworks during the summer's holidays, or at least some more proactive communication about safety and basically how to be safe and legal when using fireworks. And then the other was just 3 comments that I got about improving the Mountain View corridor area through our city with murals or art or landscaping. And I know that also involves state agencies and others, and maybe some of this is already in the works in a more staged or gradual development type of plan with the improvements down the road. But those are 2 things that I wanted to bring up that residents have brought up that I just wanted to get on the list for either communication or further discussion.
The fireworks one might be time sensitive, I think.
Certainly.
After fireworks.
Is there anything we're hearing, maybe activity from the county on this issue, or are we just left each individually?
Just as I was leaving to come down here, Salt Lake City Mayor Mendenhall declared that they have banned all Class C fireworks in Salt Lake City and all open burning as of 4:30 this afternoon. So that's one thing we're hearing. The county is also, I think yesterday held a press conference saying that they were banning it as much as they could.
So then it's up to the city to do any more if they want to.
Yes. We can, according to our Western Growth Committee yesterday and Senator Harper, who seemed to be the expert on most everything happening at the legislature, said it's a question of local ban on fireworks, and they're looking at asking for local control. So if we want local control, we need to take the initiative and also the heat, both verbally and otherwise. And he says that if we have a hazardous area and we've declared it as a hazardous area, we can ban it in that and we can restrict it. But other than that, we can't, which is why we've got the restrictions we do have, where we've got interface with hazardous areas and around the river. So you want the mic back? I don't know if I've
On its way. So fireworks is an issue of local control, but housing is not.
Yeah.
So although some may say fireworks is an issue of local control, it's also really not by state legislative action. To Don's point, we are able under state law to declare particular hazardous areas, which we've done in the past. In fact, we do that every year already. Anything basically west of 7200, which is kind of wildlands, or the Jordan River, which are waterways and heavy growth, that sort of thing. Beyond that, it's actually pretty up to debate as to what our actual control abilities are from a banning fireworks outright standpoint. The other thing I was going to add to this is we have been watching this conversation really very closely from the legislative end, legislative leadership, Salt Lake City. I did just get some other information, and Salt Lake County Council is kind of asking, I guess, that we either don't have fireworks or don't enforce a ban, but Salt Lake County Mayor's out of town right now. So there's some confusion as to what they're actually going to do or not do. As far as our own, I guess, ability or recommendation, we are really actually in a position that probably the best advice that we could give to the council is whatever you think is going to be the best message to the residents in terms of being able to influence them one way or the other, be more permissible or allowable, but safety oriented or whatever, we're able to cover however you would like to do that. We have actually started previous to this instituting more of a messaging on the whole fire thing anyway of our own accord, as we've talked about earlier. So we are doing that much, can do more, certainly can do it also throughout the fire season. As far as actually changing the regulations themselves, all I would ask is just to understand that really in the end here, whatever we do messaging wise or regulation change wise, we still have the same resources as far as enforcement go, and they're really pretty much going to look the same throughout that period, whatever that ends up looking like. So that's really kind of our only request or input to that.
So was there any concern around the Ritter Canal?
I do not remember if
I
Ritter
mean, did
Canal is
Chief have a
actually
problem
mentioned.
with that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's on. Yes, I actually was gonna send him a message by text. Chief Evans, you got any information on the Ritter Canal?
Yeah, yes, we did not do that one. But there's one of the things we tried to do was look at areas where there's a lot of, I guess, development or housing that would light the fireworks. But we did not do that, but if you would like, I guess we can. Sorry about that.
Is your main concern for the fire danger just Jordan River and west of 72?
You know, fire dangers all over. Yeah, I mean, when you look west of 72, we've got an interface going up that canyon, and then just the Jordan River itself. But one of the messages that we were trying to give out was kind of just take a pause this year. It's dry, it's hot. You know, just asking people to take a pause on fireworks is what I would suggest.
Okay, thank you.
Well, given that there's not a lot that we can do to get a message out other than maybe our social media sites, maybe we should just put a message there for people to say, recognize it's a drought, it's a hot, dry year. Be very careful with fireworks, or something that the staff come up with. Would that work?
And then would you detail our normal restriction west of 72 and down by the Jordan River?
Sure.
Can you do that since we've been doing that anyway?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Do we have any?
Go ahead, Chief.
I was just going to ask, do we have any ability or influence in having these restrictions posted at places where fireworks are being sold, like the tents out in the parking lots and that kind of thing? So when folks are buying fireworks, they're at least aware of that. Is that even a remote possibility?
That's a good question. I don't know. Chief Evans, got any information on that?
No, we did not give them to the places that sell. We could, that would just be asking them to give out the paper that we would provide for them. And we can do that if that's what you'd like. We can go make some copies and drop it off at all the fireworks stands. And then of course you have all the indoor sales of stores and things like that we could do too. The issue with that is you're just asking, hoping that somebody will give out that piece of paper. But we certainly can do that if you'd like.
Or post it, if you wanted to put together something bigger, like poster style, something like that.
it seems like that asking them to do it, is that like asking the fox about the chicken coop? I would
Sounds
think
good.
that they would not be very willing because they want to sell more and they want people to shoot them off.
Sounds like a potential waste of paper copies, right? But I don't know if someone was willing to tape it up on their register or something where we were passing out hundreds of copies of paper, but just having one posted. Just an idea. I don't know. I haven't bought fireworks in a long time, so I'm out of that game for a minute.
Mhm.
It's a matter of messaging.
I think the fireworks vendors would be happy to have a poster from us that says fireworks are allowed in these areas and not in these areas, right? It's a matter of messaging, how you put the word out. People going and buying fireworks thinking, oh, they're all going to be out loud. Maybe we shouldn't buy as much this year. But then we can see that, oh, it's going to be okay if we stay home. I think another thing, if we tell everybody they can't use fireworks, those that are going to use them are going to go to the foothills. They're going to go to places where they don't think they'll be caught. And it's going to be more dangerous than if we just let them set them off in their cul-de-sacs.
Kind of like the old saying that laws are made for those who obey them.
Well, the good thing is that's most of the people. So
Hopefully.
so Wayne, what do you think? Do you feel you have any assignment or?
Mayor, I think we already did have the assignment to sort of strengthen the message and think of different ways to get that message out there, which I think we got some good input here. And we'll look at some other ways to do that. As far as further regulation, what I'm kind of hearing is maybe we just stay with the regulation that we already have in place, that we have done in the past, and leave it at that. If that sounds correct.
And if we could get information out to the stands, that would be
Sure.
great.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Are you going to, does the council feel it appropriate to put anything out on our social media sites?
And I think we have already done that. If not, I know.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I think so, Mayor. If I'm wrong, it's only a matter of timing. Sam and
Yeah.
I have been talking about putting that message out.
Okay, any other future agenda items? If not, let's hear some council reports. Yes, sir.
I don't know if I need a mic or not. But I did attend Western Growth yesterday, and they basically had a summary, an overview of the special session. And I'm not going to play the same thing that Senator Harper played. You put a mic in front of him and he just kept talking. We went about a half an hour over our allotted time at the end. But just a couple of things that he said, and just like Mr. Pyle said on local government building regulations, they made some changes in those. And he said that the league was actually supportive of the changes they made in the special session. So we may want to do some work there, because local zoning authority restrictions will only increase. And so we may want to talk to the league and suggest that we want to push for a little less regulation from the state on our local authority to zone. He didn't mention that. I took that out of it. But he also talked about redistricting. It's been pushed back to probably October. And the redistricting committees are holding meetings statewide. And the websites for each of those committees has the locations where those meetings will be. But they probably won't get the report back to the legislature before October. It has to be adopted by November. So For those of you who are running, that may, be an indication of what needs to be done there. Then the question on the fireworks. Then we also had Jordan Valley Water. Their concern basically is that the communities have enough water. They've actually been able to save water in some of their sources and their reservoirs so that they're not concerned about immediate drought needs in their local communities that they serve, which Granger Hunter is one of those, because they've been able to do this over the years and actually got some extra water that they can alleviate some of the real concerns. But they are developing a drought contingency plan, which they should be able to present to their board and get adopted by the end of this year, if we're still here and haven't blown away in the dust. So, but they are confident with that. They're also working on some rate scales so that if you're overusing water in your area, then they'll be able to charge more for that overuse. And I think what we talked about a couple of weeks ago was in finding that information out is about where they are too at this point. So that's my report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not hearing anyone else, then we'll go to reviewing the agenda for the Special Redevelopment Agency. It looks like Mr. Jackson is going to bring us up to speed on this.
Yes, let me share my screen real quick. Okay, can everybody see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, thanks for your time. Jeff Jackson with the West Valley City RDA. I'm here to talk about Hexcel headquarters. So this is an opportunity that we have to successfully recruit the Americas Research and Technology Center of Excellence. So let me just give you a little bit of background on Hexcel as they pertain to West Valley. Many of you might know this, but I'm just going to rehash it again. Hexcel has been in West Valley City for nearly 10 years. They've invested $350 million worth of capital investment in the carbon fiber lines that they've established here in West Valley City. And we were successful in recruiting them to West Valley City because of a tax increment finance agreement that we had that helped offset expensive impediments to development here in the city. And so what we're seeking to do today is to modify that agreement to allow for a little bit more juice in that in order to successfully recruit the Hexcel headquarters in the Americas Research and Technology Center of Excellence. So let me just dive into this a little bit so you guys know what this is. So as most of you know, Hexcel is a manufacturer of aerospace grade carbon fiber. It's the second largest manufacturer of carbon fiber in the entire world. The clients include Boeing, Airbus, and the US government. And it's all made here in West Valley City. It's kind of a big deal. And just so you know what this is, what they're looking to do here in the city in this next phase, this final phase, is a state-of-the-art research and technology center for advanced composites, materials, and carbon fiber development. So that will encompass, and that'll be for the Americas. So it'll be the entire continent, a 90,000 square foot facility, $25 million of capital investment, and that includes the structure, it includes all the technology for their laboratory and all the machinery that they need for their research and technology. And it includes 115 employees with an average salary of nearly $150,000 with full benefits. And this includes scientists, engineers, and also C-level executives. So the executives of their headquarters will now be located here in West Valley City. So this is a really great employment mix that we've been trying to recruit for some time. And this presents a really good opportunity for us to get that here in the city as well. Where will they be located if they come here is right here. You'll see the circle. Here we have the other carbon fiber lines, as you'll see. That's all the $350 million of current capital investment at play there. In this next slide, you're going to see the elevations of what they want to build. You can see that it's modern, it's clean, but it still has kind of that industrial feel, kind of mixed with science and technology. Here's another elevation here. Just a really beautiful building. And then here you see a little patio off the back that they want to do. So they're looking to potentially make an incredible investment in the city. This is exactly what the RDA has been working on for some time with Xcel, is to not just have the manufacturing side of it, but to have also their C-level executive, to have a headquarters locate here. It's a really great opportunity to do so. And it's a simple modification of an agreement that we already have in place with them. So thanks so much for listening to this presentation about Hexcel. Super excited about our opportunity with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Okay. Thank you very much, Jeff. Take care.
Thank you, Mayor.
With that, then, we do not have a need for a closed session, but that completes our agenda unless the council has any further comments or. Okay.
Since I've still got the microphone, move to adjourn.
Without objection, then we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objection, it was unanimous. We're adjourned. We'll see you in a half an hour. Thank you.